Well, good morning again to everyone, and welcome to one of our most popular annual webinars, Music Resources and Tips, Preparing for the New Liturgical Year. I'm Dr. Glenn Byer. I'm the Director of Worship Publications here at OCP. We're here with a number of the OCP family, and I'm really glad they could all make time today to be with us. Over the course of the next hour, we'll be guiding you through what's new and what's still great about the OCP Breaking Bread and today's Missal worship program. We have a lot to get to, so let's get the preliminaries out of the way. Before we get started, if you have other apps or programs running, I really recommend you close them, since it's going to affect the speed at which the slides will load and consequently the quality of your viewing and listening experience. When it comes to questions during these webinars, we really love questions. On the right hand of your screen is a control panel where you can submit questions. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the question section of your control panel. At the end of the presentation, we will answer as many questions as we can, and any that we don't get to, we'll answer after the webinar in writing. So thank you for sending some of your questions in advance. We enjoyed reading them and hope you find our answers helpful. And since we aren't doing a video presentation to interfere with all the music we want to show you, here's a quick look at your very handsome presenter. And so let's begin as we start all good things. We'll start with prayer. This prayer comes from OCP's great choir resource, Choir Prayers. This resource has been around for years, but if you haven't seen it, this prayer shows you how useful it can still be. This prayer is taken from the section on Advent and Christmas. So a prayer for Advent. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Amen. Lord, these Advent days call us to remember the somber notes of our lives, the moments when there was only darkness, days we cannot recall living, days when there was nothing left but emptiness. We cried through our tears. In that painful silence, a solitary sweet note begins, sometimes sung by a prophet, more often sung by your own voice, the voice in the wilderness, the voice of God, Emmanuel, stirs the stilled heart. Some small glimpse of hope is intoned. We hear a note and choose to respond, a harmony begins. The dark night becomes a prelude to rejoicing. Amen. So we do have a lot to cover today. So just a quick roadmap of our main topics. I promise this will be the last slide we'll read to you. So today we will be looking at discovering new songs in Breaking Bread, today's Missal for 2019. We're going to learn how to get the most out of our accompaniment books. We're going to think in new ways about liturgy, canción, and today's liturgy. We're going to discover some hidden gems in our programs. And if you stay to the end, you'll meet a surprise guest. Ooh. We're going to test out our two-way communications now. So here is a survey question for you to answer. Please now take a moment to respond. Here at OCP, we care so much more than just publishing great music. We are also really interested in helping pastoral musicians make the most of their talents and abilities. As we always say around here in the building, Catholics don't plan the liturgy, we prepare it. The selection of music to support the liturgy has been an area where we spend a lot of our energy, trying to be sure that we make good suggestions that will support the church's liturgy. Well, feel free to keep responding, but for the moment, let's take a look at the results. So 53% of you, 54, 55% of you use liturgy canción in today's liturgy. 73% were looking at the Sunday readings. 44% use a liturgy planning resource like liturgy.com. 29% of you use the prayers and antiphons from the Missal. I'm really happy to see that as a liturgist. And then a bunch of you also use other means. So that's all great. Thank you so much. That's really helpful to us. So this year we thought we'd try a slightly different format so that you could hear more of the voices of the OCP family. There's such a great group of talented people here that we wanted you to hear from as many of them as possible. So as you can see on the list here, there's a whole bunch of different people from different parts of the company. We have Jethro Higgins from marketing, Carl Rohde from sales. We're going to hear from John DeBellis in worship publication, Angela Westhoff Johnson, our music editorial manager, and then our surprise guest. So this is one of our most popular webinars, and sometimes people ask why we hold it now. We hold it now so that it gives you time to really prepare for Advent, gives you time to test drive new Mass settings, to evaluate last year's efforts and to look for strengths and weaknesses, and really to hit the ground running in September with at least a half dozen or so new songs that you want your groups to learn over the coming year. With the start of the new school year, we can already start thinking about Advent. We can almost see it over the horizon. So when your new missals arrive, don't just put them in the closet until you're ready to put them out in November. Rather, spend some quality time and get to know them. Okay? Before we get to the new music, which is almost there, I wanted to take just a second to look at the covers for the new year. The music issue cover depicts how our music supports and surrounds the Eucharist. No matter what we do as pastoral musicians, Jesus is at the center, and we always want to remember that. For Breaking Bread, we have a fabulous image here. It's a Eucharistic image, and so we chose this artist's depiction of how the fraction rite at the Mass is a participation in the sacrifice of Christ on the cross. I really hope you enjoy them over the coming year. Okay then, enough with preliminaries. Let's dive in and look at some of the new music in this year's Breaking Bread music issue. With 22 new titles being added, obviously we can't cover everything, but we'll get to as many of the highlights as we can. And without further ado, here is our first guest from our marketing department, Jethro Higgins. Jethro is active in music ministry in a parish here in the Portland area, so he is also a client of OCP, as many of our staff here are. Welcome, Jethro.
Thanks, Glenn. Glad to be here.
So of all the new music that we could talk about today, why did you pick this song?
Well, Alleluia is a song that's close to my heart. I was very excited to find that it was in our worship programs this year. Catholic radio has been playing the heck out of it the past couple of months every morning, so it's fresh in my head. But Sarah Kroger had a chance to come play this song for us at a lunchtime event here at OCP, and I really fell in love with the song. Its simplicity, it's very beautiful. It's also a collaboration with Josh Blakesley and Sarah Hart, two people that our audience is probably well familiar with. The song can be done really well with a very simple ensemble, just a guitar, just a piano, and some voices singing melody. It can also be done in a more grander way. You'll see at the top it says Appalachian Feel. I really like that feeling. And it can be done in a more of a traditional style and more of a contemporary style. So as I play it, the first time I go through the refrain, I'm going to sing it in a more straight style for a more traditional feel, and then I'm going to mix it up a little the second time we go through the refrain.
Great.
So this is Alleluia is our song. What hope we have, even in the longest night, for the light will overcome. We will not fear, for we know the sun will rise. Alleluia. Joy we have, for the stone is rolled away, and the tomb holds nothing now. No sting of death, no power over sin or grave. Hallelujah is our song. Hallelujah, hallelujah. He is risen over all. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah is our song.
Well, thanks, Jethro. That is a really great song. How do you think people will use it at the liturgy?
That is a fantastic question. I've actually, at our parish, we subscribe to both the Breaking Bread and the Spirit and Song digital libraries. And we've been looking at exploring new ideas for entrance and sending forth songs. We've been trying a couple of new things out, and I was actually really excited. I mentioned this to Tom Tomasek, who also works with our parish, another OCP composer. That this would be a great song for either an entrance or a sending forth, especially during the Easter season. Obviously, we were talking about Advent earlier, probably not appropriate for Advent or Lent, but it's a great entrance song, a great sending forth song, and the nice thing about its structure is that you could include the refrain right after the first verse if you're just trying to do one verse, do a refrain, and let Father get out of the church, or it can be extended, so it's very malleable.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now go away.
Will do.
I'm now happy to welcome Carl Rohde. You remember Carl from last year. He is the talented keyboard player who also has a position up in Vancouver in Washington. I asked you here, Carl, to specifically talk about the accompaniment editions, what we lovingly call the big books here at the company. Can you tell me what the best features of the big books are?
Sure. Some of the best features of the big books, in my opinion, the layout, readability, and font, which has been thoughtfully selected, gives the accompanist an advantage to become a better sight reader and play fewer mistakes. OCP also has an outstanding music editorial team that carefully combs through each and every piece of music, making sure the accompaniment correctly matches the harmonies found in the third edition of Choral Praise and to spot any errors. Most importantly, the accompaniment books are approachable. A novice keyboardist can use this resource, while folks with more experience can get creative and add improvisations.
That's great. I'm an amateur piano player myself, so I really appreciate the fact that I can sit down and right away just get into a piece. How do you find they work when you have a group of instruments together?
They work quite well. The solo instrument book for C and B flat instruments match up completely with the keyboard and guitar accompaniment books.
Great. As a keyboard player, do you ever use one of the other books to add to what you normally play?
Yeah, something to keep in mind if you play plan on improvising or changing the accompaniment is whether or not the congregation knows the song well enough. If it's a new song, don't get crazy with the accompaniments. Once a congregation feels comfortable, there are so many different ways to make the music more interesting and engaging. Raising the final verse of a hymn a half step or whole step is a great way to enhance congregational singing. If you don't have the skills to transpose the accompaniment in your head, get a copy of the accompaniment in a different key. OCP has a low-key accompaniment book available. You could have both copies of the music side by side, and between the verses, add in a 4 or 8 measure modulating interlude to get to the new key. If you've never tried this before, try using this technique at Christmas time for O Come All Ye Faithful.
Great. Thanks, Carl. That's really helpful. And these accompaniment books, we spend a lot of time and effort keeping them up to date every year. And so really spend some time with them, really trying to get the most out of them. Carl, I'm going to ask you to stay a bit longer to help us sing one of the new songs in the program, this one by Father Jan Michael Jonkas. Father Jonkas has been spending the last several years writing hymns for all the Sundays of the year. OCP is so glad to have these compositions to offer to the church, not only because they are by this important composer, but also because they have such great theology, wedded to a strong poetic text. Let's give this one a try, and Angela's going to sing it for us. Just listen to those words. What an amazing piece, wedded to such beautiful music. Show your face, draw back the curtain to reveal your presence here. It's what it's all about. It's truly an amazing text. All right, moving on. This week is the Quinto Encuentro event down in Texas, so most of our Spanish-speaking staff are off to celebrate this important event in the life of the church in the United States. But not to worry, we can still say a few things about our Spanish language materials. This year, for the first time, there will be a supplement to Unidos en Cristo music program. This was needed to accommodate the changes to the texts of the Mass brought about by the new Missal Romano for the United States of America. You can get this as a download, but also in print form. It's up to you. In our Breaking Bread program, I'm so pleased to be welcoming another bilingual song, this time for communion. I encourage all of our customers to take a look at this text in particular. I believe there is a difference in theology, a difference in spirit that could really enrich your music program. Notice how the text focuses on coming to know Jesus. Jesus almost as a friend, as someone who lives with you in your homes. And it's a stronger sense of the personal relationship with Jesus is found very often in music in Spanish. So I think this is quite a powerful addition and for any musical program, a really powerful song. So now I'm really happy to welcome John DeBellis. He and I work closely together in worship publications. He takes a leadership role in the magazines, and so I asked him to be here today. Welcome, John.
Good morning, Dr. Glenn. We do work closely, a few feet apart, though. Not too close.
Not too close. Yeah. That's good. I know that creating these quarterly publications is a major part of your work. Counting contributors and everybody who helps create the content and the layout, how many people would you say are involved in the magazine?
From the beginning of one magazine to the end of its publication, and anywhere between 20 and 30 people probably.
That's amazing. So it's a major effort here at the company.
Indeed. So
I know that you want to let people know who are in English parishes why they might want to take a look at LC. Why is that?
LC is a bilingual resource, believe it or not, and it has, especially if you have a multicultural ministry in your parish, it has resources, reflections on the liturgical calendar, new music that could benefit your parish, just with a different focus. But also remember, we're one big church, so there's tons of stuff to be called from that magazine as well.
So these weekly reflections are also in English then?
Correct. Everything. The articles are also in English. It's laid out so it's side by side, Spanish and English. We work really hard on the translations to make sure that all the information comes across in both languages. Yes.
Well, that's great. That's really important to know about Liturgy Campion. When it comes to today's liturgy, I know that you have a couple of elements that you'd like to highlight. What are they?
Well, the suggestions are really at the heart of the magazine. Not only is it a definitive recurring list of all the music for all the celebrations, but it's rotating, and our esteemed editor, Elaine Redler-McQueenie, does a really good job of making sure that new suggestions and new music circulates in there. And then, to complement those suggestions, she writes columns, which are both witty, tie the music selections to scripture. She tells personal stories, and really ties all that piece together, which is right next to the planning page, which serves as a nice progression from sitting down, thinking about, basically Dr. Elaine does all the thinking for you, which is really nice. However, remember these are suggestions, and so you still have the freedom to pick from all of our catalog.
That's great, John. I understand that there is a very long-running author that has been writing for the magazine for like 10 years or more, that he's just a wonderful author, and he's right now working on a series on the catechism, I understand.
That would be you. Including yourself, and thank you for your continued work on the catechism. I will give you a little hint. I'm reading a piece that Glenn currently wrote for next year about the Holy Spirit, but you'll have to wait. Anyway, we have tons of esteemed writers from throughout the country. We have Deacon Paul Covino of the Diocese of Worcester. We have Angela to my right over here, who does an excellent piece on choral music. Rick Maudlin in-house, who is a composer and manager of, what is he the manager of? Artists, yes. Has a nice
Music development.
Music development, yes. He has a great technical advice on music in the liturgy, but we also get pieces from composers like Sarah Hart, Rory Cooney, Ron Harbour, Pedro Rubalcaba. We have clergy, religious, music directors, organ players, pastor musicians, leaders in youth ministry, multicultural ministry, that really, speak to both the music ministry but also the rituals and the celebration of Mass around that music.
Well, thanks so much for stopping by, John. We're glad to have you with us, and we're grateful for all the important work you do for today's liturgy and Liturgy Campion.
And I'm grateful for you, Doctor. Thank you.
Yeah, leave.
I'm leaving.
Now here is one of our managers here at OCP, Angela Westhoff-Johnson. Angela is in charge of our music editorial area here at OCP, but she does so much more. She's also the music director here at the Cathedral in Portland. As music director of one of the premier choirs here in Portland area, I know you're excited to talk about what's new at OCP for octavos. So what's new?
I am so excited to talk about our new look for our octavos. We have some new series. You'll see here we're featuring a few of them. We've always had the OCP Choral series. There are lots and lots of titles in that, over 2,000 to be in fact. And the difficulty is finding exactly what you're looking for. So we've now created new series to make it easier to find things. If you're looking for a Christmas piece, you want to find a Christmas piece. You don't want to look through 2,000 different titles to find that.
I so agree with you.
You can search on baby or child or sleep or something like that, but we want to make it even easier. So you'll see down there in the bottom row, the Christmas series.
Oh, that's exciting.
Isn't that beautiful? And then we have, we've always had our Trinitas series. It's a little geared toward a little more advanced choirs, but they're not always terribly difficult. Don't overlook that series. We now have a Trinitas Christmas series. You'll see in the top left there, the Michael Jonkas Hymnary series, as Glenn was talking about, those beautiful texts that Father Jonkas has written. We're featuring them in his own choral series, which support his hymnaries. We've got our choral hymns of praise with a beautiful organ, side of the organ there. A new spiritual series. That's really exciting for us. We've had lots of spirituals, but you just couldn't really find them. And the same for our psalm series. Lots and lots of psalms. So more easily found with these new series. We also
This sounds like a really great development.
It is super exciting for us. We are partnering with J.W. Pepper also in a bigger way. We've kind of worked with them for many years, but we're super excited about that partnership, and you can find all of our titles now with J.W. Pepper.
That's just great. Angela, you also had a lot to do with some of the new music in the program. What can you tell us about this great new song by Rick Modler?
It's so beautiful. We actually included this in our NPM showcase this past year, and it was a hit. So beautiful text by Owen Allstott. As John said, Rick is a longtime composer, employee of OCP, has had his, kind of worked in every department. He was our managing arranger for many years. So he knows how to arrange so that all different keyboard players of all different levels, let's say it that way. I always say, if I can play your arrangement, you done good, because I'm not good.
I know the feeling. All right, would you be willing to sing a little bit of it for us?
Sure.
How are we going to do this? I think first verse, refrain, and then the final
Yeah,
ending?
you can go back to the second verse, but we're going to skip the second verse, go right to the refrain.
Okay.
It's good for funerals and month of November, times of comfort, consolation, beautiful.
So everyone try singing along at home.
Here we go. Verse 1.
Softly falling into night, oh Jesus, carry me home. Now the work of the present day is done, oh Jesus, carry me home.
Right to the refrain.
Carry me home, carry me home, oh Jesus, carry me home. Carry me home, carry me home, oh Jesus, carry me home.
Second ending.
As the last prayer ascends round me, family and gentle friends, carry me home, carry me home, oh Jesus, carry me home. Oh Jesus, carry me home.
It's a gem. Sorry, it was the third ending, not the second ending. My bad there. Kind of
got
has
that.
that Americana feel to it. Lots of flexibility and style, but it's really beautiful.
I think I'm going to have to change my funeral plan.
I know. I agree.
It is just so beautiful. Thank you for that. But I'm also pleased that you have been recommending, I'll say, it's a nice word.
Yes.
You've been recommending that we look at this new song for so many years. And I love this piece by Alexander Pelikan.
Right.
What kind of reactions have you gotten to this piece?
You know, it's new to our program, but it's been out for a long time. And every time we do it at the cathedral, I hear wonderful feedback on it. It is just beautiful. It's simple. Those of us who love chant will really appreciate the verses of this. They're the Ave Verum Corpus, a chant that every Catholic should know. And we put the translation under there in parens under each verse so that your assembly knows the text of what you're singing. It is stunning, it is simple, it is one of the gems that is new to our program, and I encourage you to take a look at it.
That's great. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to take a little break from all of the guests that we've been having and just talk about some of the other pieces to the program that we have here at OCP. Always good to remind everybody about Heritage Missal. If Breaking Bread doesn't seem to be quite the right fit for you, it's still a great go-to program that has the very best of what's in Breaking Bread, not as much new music. We add 8 pages every year and then integrate them once every 3 or 4 years, but it's a good, smaller, lighter resource if that's what you're looking for. At OCP, we've long recognized, though, that Missal programs are not judged suitable for every situation. OCP Hymnals include the 3rd edition of the most popular English Catholic hymnal of all time, and it might surprise you, it's Glory and Praise. In addition, we have the gold standard for Catholic contemporary music in Spirit and Song. Our Spanish language hymnal, Flor y Canto, brings together music from many Spanish language traditions to meet the Hispanic needs of Hispanic ministries across the United States. And serving the growing, we also have a Vietnamese hymnal serving the growing community of that culture. And then, in addition, we offer Journey Songs, our classic English hymnal. And we have 2 hymnals for younger people, Never Too Young, which is sort of a spirit and song for older children. And then, of course, our classic Rise Up and Sing, now in its 3rd edition. All of these hymnals have supporting recordings and accompaniment books for musicians, and many of them have also choral books for the choir. But in addition to the main books, we also have so many supporting materials. If you buy 50 or more of our Missal program, you get just a whole slew of support materials. And then there's a few new support materials that we have just, we're so proud of that we wanted to draw some attention to as well. We have, of course, Choral Praise Comprehensive, supports all of OCP's English Missal resources. It's available with or without readings and also available in an ebook format. It's great for choirs that don't have a huge budget to purchase hundreds of octavos. However, you can also purchase hundreds of octavos. Angela was here telling us all about that just a few minutes ago. Alabanza Choral supports all of OCP bilingual and Spanish language resources. You all know, I'm sure, about Respond and Acclaim and Respond the Acclama. But in addition to that, we have the one, that's of course our tried and true resource by Owen Alstott, but we also now have the wonderful Spirit and Psalm, which is a contemporary psalter. The psalter is still completely accurate, completely faithful to the lectionary, but it provides for at least 2 different ways of proclaiming this psalm in a contemporary style. One more chant and one more of an accompanied version. So it's a really wonderful resource, and we can't keep it on the shelves. People are just snapping it up. It's a wonderful resource, and I highly recommend it for you. And of course, we have many recordings for all of these different resources. Okay? People often ask about fundraising, how to fundraise for a hymnal. OCP provides several options, include 0% financing for 5 years to assist communities that would like to get into a hymnal program. OCP also provides fundraising materials and commemorative plates that you can put right in the book to say who gave what. In addition to all of our print resources, OCP knows that ebooks and services are the growing trend, and we can help you both in planning and rehearsing, as well as for playing at the liturgy. OCP currently offers 2 subscription programs for music ministers to use, as well as an exciting license program to provide music for the assembly. Spirit and Song and Breaking Bread include all of our most popular music, and so we offer each of these resources as an online subscription. This is a special resource that includes the keyboard, guitar, solo instrument of all the songs in these resources. It includes recordings as well as it includes permission to share these resources with your music ministers. The Breaking Bread Digital Music Library is really special. That has features that we are just so proud of. It has many of the texts for the special liturgies that take place throughout the year, and it includes choral settings from Choral Praise Comprehensive 3rd edition for the use of your choir. And more, all the responsorial psalms from Respond and Acclaim are there. Of Quite simply, it's an affordable way to supplement the use of the missals that you already have in your parish. And just a reminder that the major Catholic publishing houses have finally got their act together to offer one license, literally one license, for the reprinting or projecting of music in your congregation. We've been hearing from you for years, and now here it is, one license to govern us all. This is the license you need for your assembly, especially for those special events throughout the year. And make sure you report usages of all your OCP titles. This makes a real difference in the lives of our composers. It's important to remember that most of our composers do not make a living just from writing music. And so any way we can support them and support OCP is an important part of our parish ministry that will help to ensure an ongoing supply of quality music for the liturgy. So now we come to the big question. Are you ready for the new year? Have you confirmed your Missal subscription? Have you looked at your accompaniment books? Have you looked at the changes, the new additions to the accompaniment books? Do you have all the other resources you need for the liturgical year? Your prayer of the faithful, your extra copies of Respond and Acclaim? Do you need additional missal covers for the pews? It's time to start planning now because it comes to us awful quickly, especially if you're looking to have extra musicians for Christmas. They book up quickly, so start thinking about them now. This is also an opportunity for you to communicate with the parish staff to make sure that you and they are on the same page in terms of what the parish is going to be celebrating over the coming year. So now I'm really happy to introduce our special surprise guest. It's Ken Canedo. Yay! Ken, OCP is so glad that we have you not only as an employee, but as an author. You have not only been the witness to this exciting period in church music, but also its troubadour. And now you have chronicled these exciting years in your books. I understand you're just back from a great book tour in the Bay Area. What can you tell us about your books?
Well, thank you for having me, Glenn. It was very exciting in the Bay Area. The response of the people that I met was just so wonderful in the response to what I wrote about in my books. You know, many people make a New Year's resolution to improve their reading, to do more spiritual reading. Here are two books that will help you do that, because in both Keep the Fire Burning and From Mountains High, the story of how the Holy Spirit blew through the church and through the world and inspired renewal. And even after the Second Vatican Council ended in 1965, the Spirit continued to blow and inspire such composers as Ray Rapp, Sebastian Temple, Carrie Landry, the Damians, and then through the 1970s, the Spirit continued to blow through Grace Moore and Brown, Bob Hurd, the monks of Western Priory, the Damians, David Hawes, Marty Hagen, Michael Joncas, and of course, the St. Louis Jesuits.
Of course.
And so these are books that tell the story of each of these composers and their times and how they were part of their community and wrote music for their communities, many of which we're still singing today.
It really reads like a sort of a communal memoir, really, because as you talk about each of these different composers in the history of the liturgical movement, they each get sort of tell their story. We sort of hear their voice as I read through this.
Oh yes, one of the great privileges I had as an author was to interview a lot of these composers and just listen to them. And I've always been inspired by the fact that many of them had no idea that the songs they were writing in their parishes or communities would continue to inspire people outside their circle.
So it really was like a fire burning. It just spread throughout the country and around the world.
Absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
great. I understand that these are really economically priced books that will make a lovely Christmas gift.
Lovely Christmas gift, lovely Hanukkah gift.
Very good.
I mean, a lovely back-to-school gift. I mean, a lovely birthday gift.
Okay. So evidently they could be a gift. So, Ken, you also had, as I understand it, an important part to play in the experience that led to one of our new songs called A Place at Your Table. What can you tell us about this song?
A Place at Your Table by Ben Walther. In summer of 2013, there were several of us spirit and song composers that were invited by Catholic Relief Services to take a tour of Ghana in Africa. And that was Ben Walther, Valama Jansen, Sarah Kroger, Greg Walton, Robert Fiducia, and myself. And as we toured that wonderful country, we were overwhelmed by their hospitality. From every tribal village all on into the cities, and even at the Cathedral of Sacred Heart in Bogatanga in northern Ghana. We were overwhelmed by the spirit of participation in the liturgy, by their welcome. And that's what Ben is writing about in this song. There is a place at your table. And in a country where community service and social justice is such a hallmark, you notice the bridge in this song, taken from Luke chapter 4, speaks of bringing liberty to the captives and sight to the blind.
Very much so,
Ben
yes.
really captured a lot of what we experienced in Ghana that summer.
That's really great. How would you use this song? Is it a communion song only, or can you use it in a number of ways?
Well, this is a communion song,
Yeah.
quite obviously. I think it can also be used as an entrance song. It can be used as a way to open up a conference or a meeting, a place at your table.
I like that. That's great. Thank you so much, Ken. I'm glad you're going to stay around to help answer some questions at the end of our webinar today. But let's keep moving here. We've got a little bit more to cover. I wanted to spend just a few minutes to suggest a few hidden gems to you all. Songs that have been in the program for years, but perhaps haven't been part of your repertoire. We look at the results of our parish survey that we do every year, and you graciously fill out and take the time to send in, and we're so grateful for that. But as I go through that, I have come across a number of songs that I'm kind of surprised that are getting lower usage these days. So I thought I'd call them to your attention, and maybe you can consider these as you look at your repertoire for the coming year. In the Advent area, Comfort, Comfort, oh my people, oh my goodness. This is like a classic. This is one that I thought everybody knew by heart. So I was really surprised to see this one getting lower usage. By the way, the numbers there are the 2018 numbers. You can see it says Breaking Bread 2018. The 2019 numbers are available in the ebooks that are now online, and you'll see them, the 2019 numbers will be there, of course, when you get your books. As far as the Christmas music goes, I was really surprised to see that Wake From Your Sleep, the Jesuit piece, gets lower usage. I love this thing. It feels like sort of like a madrigal, and I've always enjoyed it. Even some of the newer pieces we were hoping would get more attention. Ashes to Ashes, for example. People have been asking for various songs for Ash Wednesday to augment that day's celebration. Well, this is a really good one to take a look at. Jesus, Meek and Humble, again, a great Lenten piece. Christ is alive. How could we not be singing Christ is alive? You know, take a look at that. Let's spend some time really digging into that text a little bit. And then moving on through Pentecost, obviously, Creator Spirit by Whose Aid, another really good song that should be part of most people's repertoire. I was really surprised that a lot of you don't use I Receive the Living God. I just think this is a really great communion song that is really valuable. And you can see there's a couple more there. To You, O God, I Lift Up My Soul, which is just a fun piece. Can really spice up a celebration where you're having more traditional music. This would sort of give it a different feel. And obviously, Day Is Done, the old Welsh tune. How could we do without that? And then lastly, Pedro Rubalcava's Donde Amor y Caridad, where charity and love are found. So those are just a few to take a look at over the coming year. I think they're really great pieces, but they're right now more or less lower usage on the survey. So it means people aren't thinking about them anymore. So there's your thought for the day. Well, thank you for all of your time for coming here today, and especially for this whole group of wonderful experts that have been with us and the support staff that have made this happen. Right now, we'd like to open the floor for your questions and to explore some of these concepts a little further. Remember, you can still type in questions even now, and we'd like to start with a few of the questions that came in advance.
Would, yeah. So our first one here is, our church is in the process of changing hymnals. What special feature does Breaking Bread have that others do not? Breaking
Bread is an annual hymnal, and so there is new music there every year. You can get it in any number of forms. You can get it with the Sunday readings. You can even get it with the daily propers. So there's all kinds of different ways you can, it can really suit all kinds of different parishes. It has the very best in the new music that's coming in, as well as a really broad selection of more traditional music and hymnody. We really work hard at every year when we have to take songs out and put the new ones in to really make sure we make the most of that product that we can. So it's really, it's kind of our flagship, and people really seem to have embraced it.
Okay. The next one, we are a parish with masses in English and masses in Spanish. Should we have bilingual prayers or music during any of these masses?
I really think you need to be building the community that you have, but also the community that you want to have. And so I think that there's a real value, even in what might be called the English Mass, to at least be using the English form of bilingual hymns. There's a number of them in the Breaking Bread program, but also then looking towards having songs actually sung in Spanish. I think there's a real value to that. We have an article coming up in today's liturgy by Sister Kathy Doherty, who is a school sister of Notre Dame in St. Louis, Missouri, and she has been working at Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish forever, and she has a lot of really good suggestions on how to incorporate bilingual prayers and even the readings into the liturgy.
Another good place to look, Glenn, would be at the top of the OCP.org website under Worship Resources. There's a link called Intercultural Liturgy or Multicultural Liturgy. There's a webinar series linked there from Pedro Rubalcaba. It's a 4-part series that answers this question in depth, taking a parish from we don't do anything in Spanish to really merging the two communities. I'd suggest that you go take a look at that for some starting ideas at how to kind of get your feet wet with doing more bilingual prayers, more bilingual songs in the liturgy. Pedro does a phenomenal job of walking you through that process.
Those are great tips as well. You can also look at the back of your Liturgy Canción magazine, because every issue there is an article from Santiago Fernandez on exactly that, on how to do bilingual liturgy well.
Great. And Glenn, how far in advance would you recommend planning your liturgies? 3 months, 6 months, a year?
Angela, how far in advance should you plan your music?
Well, I'm a big supporter of planning early, so I do all of my planning in the summer for every Sunday and feast of the coming year. Hymns, prelude, postlude, choral anthems, everything. And then there's flexibility as I find different things, and maybe a piece won't work with the choir.
So you're able to identify what new pieces you want to add to your repertoire for an entire year at once.
Absolutely. And so then as Glenn said, you're looking at Breaking Bread 2019 now, and you're choosing the few pieces. Then you can teach those to your assembly beforehand and make sure your choir really knows those. So when you go to do them, you're solid. You involve the assembly.
So that way people are praying the liturgy instead of trying to figure out what the music's
Learning.
about.
You don't introduce a song on the day that you need it.
Exactly so.
Yeah.
So that's the advice from one of the best choir directors around.
Here's another one, Angela, that you might be able to help with. What's the best way to recruit new members and keep them singing in your choir?
Oh.
So we have a Saturday, Sunday, and contemporary masses.
Yeah, great question. It's hard to do that. I mean, I started 25 years ago and I had about 3 people. So you gotta meet people in the parish, go walk through before Mass. I have the choir kind of stand around and greet people. You got to look like you're having a good time, because no one wants to join a choir where people don't look like they're enjoying themselves, right? So there are many different ways. You might have put something in the bulletin or the announcements over the summer that we're starting up again. I think a good choir break it goes a long way for the choir members and for the assembly. Then they miss you, and then when you come back, it's like, oh, super exciting. So, but you just have to let people know that you're wanting new people to join, and have fun. Look like you're enjoying yourself.
I've also heard of parishes that have found spies to sit among the assembly and to listen for people who actually sing.
That's what
We
choir
do
members
that.
do in the summer. You sing from the assembly. In the summer, you support the cantors, and then you tap people on the shoulder, and you get to know them, and you say, wow, you have a beautiful voice. Have you thought of joining the choir?
Great ideas, thank you. What are some warm-up suggestions for a mixed adult choir, like 60 to 90-year-olds?
Oh, not a lot of experience with 60 to 90-year-olds, but let me think about that. Warm-ups are so important. You've got to have them. We start every rehearsal with 5 to 6 minutes of warm-ups, and we have some great resources for that I have talked about before in my TL article or in a webinar. But you keep them really simple because vocally you don't want to tire them out. So singing in unison, learning the scale tones, writing 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 8 on your board, and you get them to know those so they can sing 1, 3, 5, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3, 5. They can do that. There is an article on next year on the aging voice that will appear in TL, so look for that. But it gets tricky. Sometimes, I think Carl mentioned the low keys. As voices age, the voice kind of shifts a little bit, and we can't sing up there in the top. So moving people from maybe soprano down to alto is a good thing to do with the aging voice, not to discourage people.
Great. And where can we find access to the choral series Octavos that you spoke about?
Well, of course we have a choral packet that gets sent out 4 times a year, and we feature all the different series in those packets. We're making improvements to our website that will have better search functions on each of the choral series so that you will eventually be able to search for choral music under those different series. We know it's kind of challenging right now, but we're going to improve that. But the choral packet is one way to really find new and upcoming choral music in all the different series.
We also have on liturgy.com in the Explore area where people can look at the different choral series season by season.
Is there a choral edition of Breaking Bread, or is Choral Praise the corresponding resource?
Choral Praise Comprehensive is the corresponding resource. It gets updated about every 10 years, so as time goes on, it matches not quite as well, but that's the resource that we have for that, yes.
We might have covered this a little bit, but do you have any quick tips or best practices for introducing new songs to your congregation?
Absolutely. You need to take your time with that. Certainly as prelude, postlude music initially, just instrumentally even, can be very effective in getting the tune planted in people's minds. And then certainly in the weeks leading up to its first usage, I would use it somewhere along the line, either as a prelude or as a choir piece.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is repetition. We as musicians
Yes.
get more tired
Absolutely.
of repetition, but the assembly needs the repetition to be able to make it feel like it's their own piece. Communion pieces, we use a rotation of 12 to 14, 15 songs through the whole year. So the choir can sing them for memory practically, but the assembly needs that repetition.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of repetition too. You know, when you listen to the radio, you know, the same song shows up 3 or 4 times a day, let alone over the course of a week.
That's why they're ingrained in our minds.
That's why they're ingrained in our, exactly so. So the same thing should be true at church. There should be at least a good core number of songs that you're hearing often.
And that common repertoire, as the previous question asked about the different masses, you have to have a common repertoire between all of them. Like Jethro said, you can do things in a more traditional style or a more contemporary style. So a good, solid, common repertoire is important.
Great.
Here's one for Ken. When is Ken's book going to be available digital?
I defer to Dr. Glenn, our book manager.
That's a wonderful idea. We are sort of in the midst of trying to figure out what to do with ebooks, but Ken's book is on the top of my list as far as an ebook goes.
Why, thank you.
Could we get a list of the songs that were removed from the accompaniment books of 2014 to 2017?
Wow, that's a great question.
Yes, that exists someplace. We can create that list. If they email into customer service, we can come up with the list pieces that came out of the accompaniment with the revision year.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay. For choral music, how do you explain to parishioners or pastors that when the choir is singing, everyone participates actively in the singing, even if they are not in the choir?
That's right. Well, the documents say that, so that's a good way to first and foremost support that. But when choral music is done well, it takes the assembly into a prayerful moment that can't be done even through participation. So important times on both ends. The people should participate and sing, and they should also have moments of meditative moments that they can listen. It's really great when they can understand the words, right? That's important. If you're doing something in another language, have a translation in a program or something if you have that, so that it can take them to a place of prayer.
Right. And if you want the people to sing along, and I know you do just a fabulous job of this, Angela, really giving the sense when you bring people in with your hand gestures and with a smile.
With a smile is
you
good.
You want to look at them and challenge them really by just how you look at them.
Yeah.
Some other things I've done over the years is I've dropped the instrumentalists out, like on a third verse of a song, just so the people can hear their own voice. And it's amazing. You can hear the congregation singing, and that really gives them confidence to sing more.
I encourage the cantors to step away a bit from the mic on pieces that get them started, and then let them, and you hear for a second, and then they really join in. I think
Yes.
that's what.
Many of you may be actually sitting at a piano or playing guitar while you're trying to create this kind of engagement. So, like Glenn said, looking with your eyes, looking to the back of the church and giving a grand nod when it's their time to come in, all those things are going to be super helpful.
It's a very good thing I have a big nose, because that's what I've conducted the congregation with for 40 years.
All right, as parish musicians, we are called to be a choir or a music ministry. What are we?
The documents do speak about the importance of a choir, but the choir is a music ministry.
Absolutely.
You know, and all of this, people get bound up with terminology, and it drives me a little bit crazy. But the point here is that we are all of us at the service of the liturgy. And so if people use the term ministry to try and build themselves up, that's a mistaken understanding of what we really mean. If they use the term choir to try and separate themselves from the assembly, and sometimes even visually by, separating themselves from the assembly space, that's not what a music ministry is about. That's not necessarily at the service of the liturgy. So it's really important, whatever we call ourselves. And there's a variety of names out there. The name pastoral musician is used in the documents. The name choir is used. Whatever name we use, it's the spirit behind it that counts, I think.
I agree.
I think we have time for just one more question here. How often should you change the music of your service?
Good question.
The mass setting. What's your answer?
Well, lots of
We got all
musicians
kinds of
here,
people
pastoral
here.
musicians here. I change them seasonally. So during Advent, to really give a different feeling of the season. Advent, when you go back to ordinary time, I usually do OT 1 and 2, the same mass setting. Lent, of course, should feel very different. And then when you get into those celebratory seasons like Easter, it should be different. It should feel different. The environment should feel different. So I do them. What about you guys?
Yeah, we do about 3 a year, and then every 2 years we'll try a new mass setting and drop one of the older ones out, and then maybe bring it back in 2 years. So that's kind of our rotation.
I want to point out that Ordinary Time, Winter Ordinary Time 2019 is 8 weeks this year. A wonderful time to learn a new mass setting.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely
great.
so. Well, I think those are all good answers. I think it's a real strong sense of making the mass setting be an aid to help celebrate the seasons. I remember at the monastery in Collegeville, they used to use a different incense for each season of the year. So you would
Interesting.
know what season it was when you walked in the door just by
Oh, wow.
smelling it.
Wonderful.
We can do the same thing by hearing.
Yeah.
As soon as you hear that setting, you know, it's Lent.
And the colors, of course, this is something different, not musical, but the colors in the liturgical colors should be present when
Exactly.
people walk through that door.
They should know
They know.
immediately, and the
Like this.
music can help support
Yeah.
that. All right. Well, there you have it. The kickoff of another great year of pastoral music with OCP resources. We want to thank everyone in the marketing department here and everyone at OCP who made today possible. It's a lot of work getting everything set up. And we'd also like to thank the whole OCP family sharing their incredible talents with us today. Make sure you take the survey to help make webinars like this even better. Everyone who takes the survey will really help us in terms of making sure that what we do is of service to you. So bless you all and have a great year.
That was really good at the
We
end.
need a theme song.
That was really good at the end. Yeah, nice work. Was that all off the cuff too?
What?
The
The
screen
question?
is still on.
Yeah, that was really good
right,
interactions among y'all.
Okay,
Very
now,
good.
thank you. Wash your hands.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Yeah, just go ahead and do that, and then.
Thank you. Well done.
No, it's really good to have the family here. It made a huge difference.
Especially with the
Yeah,
transition.
it was so engaging.
So Angela, you saved our life. All these choral
I
questions.
almost left. Just so you know, I almost left.
We would have survived, but not as well.
Hey.
Is that enough for you, Ken?